Does everything have a bright side to it? Of course. Doesn't always outweigh the negatives, but everything has a bright side to it. This makes happiness a choice. And here we say that the discipline of being happy is the ultimate discipline. With that said, welcome to the Ultimate Discipline Podcast, where we meet with people who are practitioners of this exact discipline, and we hear their cool stories of cultivating happiness through challenges in their life. I am your host, Sean Greenspan. Let's get to it. What's going on, everybody? I am stoked to have Hayden on the podcast today. I got to tell you, it was really fun the way we met about a year and a half ago at VCon. I got to meet Hayden, and at the time, I was going to Gary V, the Content Guys conference, and I also ran a social media company, and I myself didn't have an Instagram, didn't have any social media. I went there. And I went there with an open mind, and I left meeting a few people, and Hayden was one of them, who inspired me to just really be open-minded about the power of a personal brand. And I saw what it did for him in business. It seemed like he, quote unquote, won the game. And I'll tell you what I mean by this, Hayden, because I saw him find a love for the content that he was making, which was beautiful. And ever since, we've stayed in contact, sometimes closer than others, but bumped into you at VCon again this year and, kind of hit it off. So I'm so excited to have you on, Hayden, continue our conversation from last week and, just dive in a little bit.
Let's do it. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Sean. Our relationship is amazing, and I feel like we're both on similar trajectories and can add value in each other's lives in so many different aspects. So blessed that we met at VCon last year, and excited to look back on this when we're like in our 50s and 60s and like just smile on everything that we've accomplished and the impact we've made.
That's a beautiful picture. I'm gonna hold that one in my head. Do you mind giving everyone a little background about yourself and share a little bit about what you're doing today?
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot I could talk about in the background, but to keep it simple, I've been in the digital marketing space since 2017, specializing in paid advertising. I started a paid advertising agency in 2019 called Cashion Marketing that still operates today, running Facebook ads, Instagram ads, TikTok ads, Google ads for clients in a multitude of industries. And then in 2021, we started the Modern Marketing Certificate, which is an education company that teaches digital marketing skills. And when people graduate our program, they get job interviews with our hiring partners. And then maybe the third aspect is I do put out content, went really hard on TikTok, and have a massive passion for just sharing my thoughts and trying to impact people in a positive way.
I appreciate you going through that, and the content thing, I think, is I'm going to call it a struggle that a lot of people are working through right now. That a lot of people feel like there's a need to put out content, and it's a stressor, and they're battling the algorithm, and Instagram hates them, and TikTok hates them, and all that shit. And like you said, you have a passion for sharing. Remember we were in what is it, Minneapolis? We're in like that like hallway where you were shooting content with Brendan. The first VCon, I remember that.
Yeah.
And it really, I guess, I have a quote that now that I'm reflecting on it, I think that moment kind of influenced. And I tell clients of mine that are like needing to make content for me and for, I tell them, like look at content as an accountability tool to continue to learn at a deep level and share it with the world. Right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a nutritionist. And I want to be like, okay, well, you didn't, the studies about nutrition change every month. So like, are you learning every month? Because you should be if you're the best nutritionist. And if you are, like, how are you holding yourself accountable to that? And I think making content could be a great thing. And I kind of want to ask you the same thing. You're like a student of the game when it comes to digital marketing. Are you continuing to learn? And how do you use content to share what you're learning?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm definitely, I like to refer to myself as a clumsy student, forever learning. I really enjoy the process of just looking at something with wide eyes and trying to understand it. And I don't think I use content as an accountability because I genuinely do it without content. Like I've always been that person that just seeks to learn. But what I do is the reverse. Now that I'm learning, I keep track of how I can turn that into content. And then when content shoot day comes, I have a list of more original ideas, if that makes sense. Instead of trying to go to the internet for inspiration, I'm getting inspiration in my day to day. So, for instance, this podcast, right? You might ask certain questions that I haven't necessarily thought about answering. Therefore, I'll give an original thought that I may not have said in a certain way yet. And then I'll go to my notes and I may write like three different topics based off what we talked about in this podcast that I then want to make content about, right? So even the reference of like clumsy student, I've never said it that way. So maybe I'll go write a note after and just say clumsy student brackets forever learning, and when it goes to content day, I'm going to do a piece of content about how it's good to be that mindset because that allows you to X Y Z. And so that's really how I do it. Is I think the only addition is when I'm doing things in life, I then go note them because I know when content day comes around, I want to be ready.
Yeah, you broke that down beautifully and very simply, and that's what I like, right? Is like, you get inspired, cool. What do you always have on you? Your phone, jot the note down. How frequently are you shooting?
Once a week.
Once a
Once a
week
week,
you sit
I'll
down.
I
Shoot,
just
yeah.
sit down and the shoot is up to 2 hours. Sometimes it takes 1 hour because I don't take content too seriously. I'm not worried about perfection. I'm actually worried about volume. I think the thing that matters is value. So if I don't say something as eloquently as possible or the lighting isn't perfect, I don't care. As long as I'm giving information that is going to provide value to the end audience, that's all that matters. And the truth is I don't actually know what that's going to be, right? I don't have the audacity to think I know what the audience wants.
Yeah.
Therefore, I might as well just produce as much as I can in the allotted time, put them all out and let it do what it do. And I think if you have the mindset of, look, I'm just going to put out content forever, you understand that eventually something will happen if you're intelligent enough and putting in the effort. Therefore, worrying about a singular piece is a waste of time.
Yeah, dude, I love the pragmatic thought process. It's something that a lot of people get like emotions get into it. Like, no, I want to blow up ASAP because I hate my job, and this will just open up door, like whatever the thought is, and then they
Yeah.
complicate it, right? And it's like, oh well, now I can't shoot content because the lighting is not right, right? Versus,
Yeah.
I agree with you that actually the head editor at Greenspan Consulting, he has a podcast that gets 100,000 listens a month and 700,000 followers on TikTok, and he has a clothing brand with 600,000 followers on TikTok, and everyone's asking him, "Oh, like what font should I use?" And he's like, "Dude, you're just missing the point. Like
Fuck up.
he just
Yeah.
puts out tremendous content. So his podcast is funny, and he just has 4 or 5 hilarious clips. Like, dude, like all right, I'm a dork, so the way that I monitor my social media is I only go on my laptop, which is crazy. But I literally like search his like TikTok account and like watch all of his clips because they're hilarious. Like, it has nothing to
Yeah.
do with like I'm not trying to get him one more view and one more like. I'm just like this is hilarious. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost
Yeah.
like watching a TV show for me. And I do think that's important. Like, to just focus on like the 80/20 rule. Focus on what matters, the quality of the content. A lot of people are trying to hack it and get the right hashtags and everything.
That's the but even what you said is the problem, right? Like you said, focus on the quality of the content. What does that even mean, right? Like if you ask 10 people what quality content means, you're going to get 10 different answers. So I like to simplify it to something that's actually quantifiable, which is volume. Put out X amount of pieces or produce X amount of pieces. That's non-debatable, right? Whether the lighting's good or bad, whether X is good or bad, it doesn't matter. Just put out X amount of pieces. And, if you want to take it a step further, schedule an hour a week to then evaluate those pieces personally and be like, oh, I like what I did there. I didn't like what I did there. And just make it a list of things you want to work on. But make sure you're putting out X amount because that is non debatable. You did or you didn't.
Yeah, I love that. And so you said personally, you said make sure you're like auditing the content personally. does that mean you're not just like making a list of the top performers? You're actually watching
No,
it. Yeah.
I look, for me, it really depends what your goal is, right? Like, I know this sounds crazy, but I want to create legacy. I want to leave impact and I want to be proud of like what I do. And so chasing views, likes, comments, shares is not the number one thing for me. Now, I don't disrespect it. I understand that's something to consider. But then my number one thing is I want to look back on my catalog, my portfolio, and be like, I'm super proud of that. Um, and so that's why the number one thing that matters is how I feel about my content, in the sense of I look back on it and I'm like, ooh, I really like want to continue growing into that individual. Oh, I think that was a little bit corny. Personally, no outside opinion. Like, who do I want to become? Who do I envision myself being? Where do I want to forward evolve? And that's my number one. And then understanding the metrics is the number two. So if it happens that what I like plus this version of it is really working, let's triple down on that because that's really what will get two horses, one scone. But um, that's how I see it. Yeah.
I You have tremendous clarity around this, and I guess transferring the conversation away from the content, right? You have a lot of clarity around this. It seems like your values are clear; they're premeditated. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're doing in your day to day or week to week habits to bring that clarity of mind? Because, well, yeah, let me stop there. So, what are you doing daily that's kind of helping you, you know, bring that clarity of mind?
It's interesting. I'm an external processor, so I actually learn through conversation mostly. So right now, even on the podcast, like you asking me a question and me just thinking through it and explaining it allows me to then actually understand what I think. Crazy, right? Like I actually just think it, but never been forced to explain it in some instances. This is one of the things on Modern Marketing Certificate, the second company. I have a business partner, 50-50 partner, and he asked me a lot of questions about why I make the decisions I make. And it forces me to then ask myself, yeah, why do I make those decisions? And then like literally understand myself better. Um, and so that's number one is I understand that I'm an external processor. Even my partner, sometimes I'll just tell her like, hey, I know I say this a lot, but like let me just sit down and like say it again because like I literally need to work through it myself and like understand it and like say it out loud to someone if that makes sense. So I think understanding how you learn is the number one way to start to get clarity. Um, and then for me, as we've talked about in the past, I track a lot of things. So every single morning, and this is Rob Dudek's philosophy, and I've adapted it to my own lifestyle. So I'm definitely not trying to steal it here. But I rate my life, my work, and my health on a scale of 1 to 10 every single morning. So a five is neutral, seven's pretty good, three's pretty bad, and any extremity above or below, yeah, you can figure it out. So I'll rate it in those categories, then I'll write a note as to why I rated it that way. And then what happens is you have this whole catalog of, every day you feel like a four on your health, every day you feel like a seven on your health, every day you feel like a three on work, every day you feel like an eight on work. And you can go back and start to look at the correlations of, oh shoot, when my health wasn't feeling good, well, I'd actually missed 3 gym days in a row. Every time it drops below four, that's where like health starts to drop. Or when I'm eating this way or not drinking this amount of water, or my sleep is doing this. So I monitor my sleep with an Aura ring. I have a Hydrate Spark bottle right here for my water intake. And so I'm trying to quantify all the data in my life, but attach it to my feelings, right? What I write down, how am I feeling? To then create the correlation of how you're feeling and what is causing it.
I like that, and it sounds scary, right? It sounds scary. Wow, that's a lot. You got to do it every day, like
But but
whatever.
it but it but it
Ex-
takes 3 minutes, right?
That's
Because
what I
like
love.
when I go to sleep, I put on an Aura ring. So like you put on a ring, that's a second, and then it's all tracked in your phone. Um, and then all I do is in the morning, literally sit down and go, okay, how do I like literally like how do I feel about life? Five. How do I feel about work today? Six. How do I feel about health today? Four. And then you write. Woke up while my stomach was hurting, a little bit stressed about the day, slept in a bit too long, although feeling confident about being able to manage my tasks today. Looking forward to going out to dinner with a friend. That's
Yeah.
it. Like you're done. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a compounding effect, right?
100%. And like it sounds silly, but then you start realizing every day you feel like a 7 on life, constantly you're like at the end of the day, oh, went out to dinner with a friend. Oh, went and played a sport. Oh, went and walked. Oh, when I do activities at the end of the day, I'm feeling like a 7. And you start to understand the pieces that actually make you feel good.
I, life moves quick, and I think that's the biggest thing that comes to my mind when you say that, because for me, what I like to do is epic adventures in the mountains, right? And
Sick.
and like that's just what I like to do. Like go, I
Mm.
call it bagging peaks. Like I just go to the mountains, find a peak, and find my way up there. And it's crazy how things work, right? Like if I don't do that every single weekend, it takes a lot of time. So it's like, okay, well then not often doing it during the week. And it's like, if you skip a few weekends, now it's like, wow, like I went a month in the summer without doing my passion. It's like, and like I live a nomadic lifestyle. So like I moved to this spot in Oregon just to do that. And then it starts to be like, whoa, like whose life are you even living, right? If you're not doing your passions. um, yeah, it's funny. And that's why, the one thing that I like one thing, I shouldn't say the one, but one thing that I've put in my life is I wake up and I exercise every morning, 365 days a year. Haven't missed a day in a while, right? Like I
Wow.
don't remember.
That's amazing.
Um, well, it is my, like I say I have a lot of non-negotiables. If I'm being honest with myself, a lot of them are aspirational. That is a non-negotiable. I woke up this morning. I'll actually give you the story. I climbed 3 of the 4 tallest mountains in Oregon on Saturday in the state, and it took
On the same day?
17. Yeah, dude, I started at 3 a.m. and I ended almost at midnight. And I took 2 breaks that were both under 5 minutes. I mean, I was hauling ass all day, and I didn't get a lot of sleep because I woke up at 3 a.m., was out till midnight in the mountains, whatever. So like today was like one of the days I love going to bed early and waking up early when it's quiet. Slept in like 2.5 hours later than usual today. And I had an hour before my first call. And then I saw I had a string of call, big emails, everything, important emails, stuff I felt behind on. But my
Okay.
non-negotiable was my movement in the morning. So I just said, like, I told myself whatever impact, positive or negative, my business is going to take from me exercising this morning, so be it. You know what I mean? Like that is what I do. Um, and it's funny because I literally, like, I was a little stressed, but I still made the decision. Fuck it, I'm going to go hit the gym. That's just what I do. It wasn't even a decision. It was just more like, that's what I do. um, and then when I got back, dude, it's like I had this like energy that was like overflowing, and it spills into like what you're doing, because dude, life is about the experience. Like in reality, all of our meetings and emails and projects and new companies and side companies, like I don't want to say they don't matter, but they don't matter. Like it is about the experience. It's about the value. It's about relationships and memories, and just like it's crazy how optimizing for experience, is can just change. I don't know, your whole your day, your week, your life.
100%. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
It's actually funny because I'm in this I'm in the fitness and wellness space, and people are always taking supplements and telling me do red light and get your blood test, everything. And
Yep.
I've started to, like, my one marker for everything is optimized for experience, like my feelings. Like if I take something or do something that makes me feel better, then I will continue to take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, um,
Mm.
and and that's really what changes like my diet. Like I started eating a super clean diet, and it's actually not about the health at all. It's about that when I break my diet,
Yeah.
my experience of life gets depleted. Kind of like what you were saying. Maybe I should track my numbers.
Well, what's interesting is like I eat extremely healthy, but it's funny. It's because I have stomach issues, and because I have stomach issues, I like literally can't afford not to eat healthy. So it's like I don't even consider eating unhealthy. Like I can't. I couldn't. I'd feel so sick if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so like I'm chicken salad every day. like just like healthy sandwiches, soups, just lots of chicken, lots of rice, lots of veg. Like literally, that's my life. Is
Yeah.
I just eat that. I can't really like do sweets. Just drink black coffee and water. Um, and so I'm super healthy in that aspect. But on the odd occasion that I'll have a treat here and there, and like in a small moderation, I do feel it. I feel it on how kind of focused I am. I feel it on my energy levels. I feel it on almost like an emotional swing level because I'm so regimented typically that when I get off gently, it like throws me off. My body's not used to that, right? And so I can feel it aggressively because of that natural balance I have. And I think most people can't feel it that aggressively, but that's how I know it's extremely important. What you eat, your sleep, your water intake, and then I think exercise, and then actually socializing. I think socializing is the big one that people don't understand the value. But if you look at the blue zones, it's always social that allows people to live so long. Um, there's
Deep
always a
connection.
deep community. A lot of times they live off what they eat, what they make on the land, what they grow. That's another one. But yeah, community is massive.
Dude, it's something that I can sometimes like. I've been trying to like force, and force is probably not the right word, like just prioritize. Like I like right when I'm done my work day to take my run, but every Tuesday in Bend they do a group run. And like, so like today's the one day, like after this I have a call, then like I'm gonna be itching to get my run in. But it's like I should definitely do this group run, see some people I run with every week, meet some new people.
Yeah.
Like that's just like what it really is all about. It's like, sharing, like I know everyone there. We have so many things in common. We like to run, we like to socialize, we live in Oregon. There you go. There's three. Um,
100%.
but what you were talking about, like eating healthy, it's funny when you fine tune like an instrument, like in this case, your body, like you can tell when it's out of whack. And I think there's a little bit of, I don't know how to say it. I think a lot of people don't factor in or don't correlate that, oh, when I don't take care of my body, I have like a lack of energy. And then how much a lack of energy affects you. Like, we all know the difference between going through a work day when you have no energy and the day where you're just like, boom, a task comes in, I bang it out. Someone calls me, boom, I'm there to meet them with energy. I have 5 calls in a row, cool, boom, boom, boom. Like, I'm just giving it to them. Like, everyone knows what that's like. And it's like we love those days. And like I don't like someone calls you after like, I don't know, I'm just feeling good today. It's like you can optimize for that. Like you can create that sensation. Um and obviously it's so not black and white that I think that's where people confuse it, right? Because it's very hard
Mhm.
to say like if you do one thing differently, it's going to change. But for some reason, like my parents come to mind where I think a lot of times like they feel drained of energy at the end of the day. I think there's things they can do to change it, but I don't know if they're not willing to or they don't maybe know.
Yeah, I mean, parents, right? Like they're gonna be in their 50s or 60s, I'd imagine. And so I don't know how much you can change someone at that age. They're just so in their ways, right? Like they've been doing it for so long, and so yeah, I think you're much more moldable when you're in your 20s, 30. You know what I mean? The younger you are, the more moldable you are.
Yeah.
And so my parents are incredible, and everybody has their pros and cons to them, and I just love my parents for who they are, and I actually have no desire to change them because that's just who they are. You know what I mean? And they grew up in a different world too. Like they can't understand the value of what we're doing in the internet and the new world we live in. They just didn't grow up in it, and so I'm empathetic to that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you kind of have to be. I wasn't that way for a while. I tried to change my family aggressively, I'd say. Um, and it was, I mean, look, I think it was all out of love, right? Like all I wanted was the best for them.
Yeah.
But it hurt me to see them suffer in ways that are changeable and then them not change them. But I realized, I think, actually, Do you know Wim Hof? You familiar with Wim Hof?
Yeah.
Um, I was up at in Spain with Wim Hof, and we're in a group setting, and we asked questions, and that was basically the question I asked. I said, "Hey, I'm all in, Wim. Like I love what you do. I believe in it, and I want to spread the word to the people that I care about. I'm not gonna start a social media channel called, Wim Hof, Wim Hof, number one fan, but like change it to like my friends and family." And I said, like, what can I do? And he told me that 9 years ago, and this was last year, so now 10 years ago. Wim Hof is like multi millionaire. He has 20 million downloads of his app. He has 10 books out. You know everything. Everyone wants to talk to him and research with him and whatever. He's like, Sean, 10 years ago, I was making $7 an hour guiding people, on trips in the mountains. And all my kids thought I was crazy a little bit. My kids' parents were like, "Oh, you're like that crazy guy that shows up, to pick their kids up from school with no shirt, no shoes, and is doing his breathing technique sitting there while waiting for the kids." And he's like, basically, if you want to change the world, you just have to shine brighter. You know, it's not change people, because change, even if it's for the good, you're dimming whatever they're trying to put out, their light. And like you're kind of like forcing your light on people. And he was
Mm.
basically saying, Sean, lead by example, shine brighter, do more. Like every time you're around them, be happy, healthy, patient, calm, whatever you want them to be. And by doing that, they will either, they'll follow or they won't, but like that's going to be the most effective way to do it. So it's actually interesting. Like before I go back and see my family, I don't even know if I've ever really talked about this, but I spend the first few weeks before like really, really dialing in sleep, nutrition, my meditation, my gratitude practice. And like I'm going into a fucking, you know, like ultra marathon race that I do. Like I prep like that when I'm going to see my family to make sure that 24/7 when I'm there, I'm on. Like I am the best version of myself so they can, you know, hopefully be inspired. Well, I don't even want to say hopefully. They could be inspired from it if they want to.
I love that. And I think like I've only done like 2 or 3 therapy sessions in my life. And I'll never forget, one of the things my therapist said to me was, um, the problem with me is that I have to fix shit. Like I can't let things go unsolved. Like, and that's what makes me so good at entrepreneurship is like I just show up and fix, show up and fix, show up and fix, show up and fix unrelentlessly, and I get energy from it and I enjoy it, right? Like a lot of people would find that exhausting or draining or annoying. I love it. And I love to fix stuff, but there's certain things in life that I can't fix. And the reason I can't fix them is because there's another party involved and they need to do something on their side to create the final solution. And what my therapist taught me was in situations like that, I have to write down everything I can do. I have to check that list off, and then I have to be content with the result as if it's fixed because I can no longer do it. And if I'm attaching my happiness, emotions, whatever, to something that is external that I can't control fully, well, then I'm just a feather in the wind. And so that
Mm.
would be maybe a piece of advice I'd give to you because that changed my life and allowed me in it's only like a couple percentage of scenarios, but where there's a party involved and they're not maybe not willing to move, I have to be content with what I can do and just move forward.
Dude, thank you for sharing that. The feather in the wind was such a nice visual. Feather in the wind is
Mm,
so weak. Maybe not weak, at, you know, like the wind is the controller, right? Like you're just not doing anything. And it's funny because I give that advice to my parents, and then I'm
mm,
not taking it in my relationship with them. And I'm just using them as an example. But my dad
mm,
gets really worked up about the news, shit that's going on. Um, and I'm like, dude, you just can't control that. And even if you could, you're not taking the steps to, politics, for example, right? It's like, either dedicate your life to this shit or just don't even. I mean, I'm not going to say don't be aware, but just don't, let it affect you, and really consider the amount of time you consume it. And then, so it's funny because I'm basically giving him that advice, but in that relationship, I'm kind of like, trying to help him. And like, sometimes I do attach my happiness to the outcome versus like the input. Um,
Mm.
Actually, I just read a book from T. Harv Eker called Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And he says, people basically are like, money is an outcome of service, right? The more value that you can serve someone and the more people you can serve, that's direct output from money. There's only one place you can get money from in the whole world, only one place, and that's other people. So if you're not serving and giving value to other people, solving their problems, you won't get money in some way. And he said when people don't have money, they're that's the fruits of the tree. They're not looking at the roots, they're looking at the fruits for more. They're trying to
Mm.
change the money element of it versus changing like the input. And actually, the hike I did this weekend, so 3 of the 4 biggest mountains in Oregon. Funny story was, I started looking into this. I'm like, hey, these mountains are some
Wait
fuckers.
a second. Did you do the biggest one though? Or
No.
did you do the I knew it. I knew it based on how you fucking framed it up.
Yeah, I'm a marketer, baby.
Yeah, I could tell. I was like, this guy didn't do the biggest one. That's why he's saying it that way.
Otherwise,
Go
I'd
on though.
say the biggest mountain and the third and fourth biggest. No.
Well, no, yeah, you didn't say like the first, second, and third biggest, or sorry, the second, third, and fourth biggest. You're like 3 of the top 4.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
And
love it.
any 3 of the top 4. Use your
Yeah,
imagination.
because if
Um,
you did the biggest one, you'd be like, I did the biggest one, and then like the third and fourth one as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
Dude, these were they're called I want to do the biggest one, but dude, that one is I would need some climbing gear, I should say. A lot of these had free climbs too. These climbs were gnarly, and I love that
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
And I said, wow, like I think I need to go with someone. And the gym I go to, there's this dude that just started going there that's like super super fit, and I was like this, and I know he's like an endurance guy too, and I was like this guy could go. I was like, Joel, you want to go try to like bag the 3 sisters? And he quickly said yes, and I was like, oh wow, he must like have like looked into this because like dude, it's not like, oh, you want to go hike around the lake.
yeah.
Um, and dude, it was a pretty it was a pretty big effort, but he said something on that hike. I completely
Yeah.
forget what it is because we're just laughing so much. But he said something on the hike that related that I was bringing it up for. But fuck it, we'll get back to that another time if it matters. um, so I'm just thinking about happiness right now, and we're talking about like inputs, outputs. There's another quote that I like to live by, that your happiness is equivalent to your reality minus your expectations. And I kind of think that's another way of saying what you were saying before, where like you can do whatever, but you can't expect an outcome, like, and you can't tether your emotions to that outcome. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
that's how I interpret that quote. Um,
yeah.
and
Well, it depends, right? Like, it depends how much control you have over the situation, is what I would say. Like, as soon as there's external variables, tethering your emotions to the outcome is dangerous. You can't control it fully. But if it's like, hey, I'm going to be happy if I, work for 4 hours today, 99% of the days, I'm able to control that. And therefore, that's a place where it is, in my opinion, healthy to tether your emotions.
yeah,
One of my favorite things is Jesse Itzler talking about his wife Sarah Blakely, and saying like her dad when she was a kid used to like champion her for the effort. So like if she went to try out for the cheerleading team, he wouldn't say like how did it go? He would say like did you try your best? And she'd be like yeah I tried my best, and he'd be like amazing, because that's what you can control. And if you tether it to the outcome, it's like you might be like, "Did you make the team?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, right." But maybe the coach wasn't looking at you. Like It's not that you're bad. There's so many variables outside of your control that's
Yeah.
why tethering your emotions to that is just not, it's just a bad strategy.
Dude, it really is. I realized what Joel said on the hike that reminded me. You just remind me because he's been in a high level sales position for 15 years, and he said
Yeah.
um, he had his worst quarter at the last quarter of last year, and then his
Mm.
second worst quarter, the first quarter this year. So he
Yep.
called his boss and he said 5 days a week, every morning, I'm going to write to you what I'm going to do. His boss isn't
Mm.
micromanaging him. That was him saying, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do every day, not the result. He's going to say, I'm going to reach out to these two clients and make sure they feel loved. I'm going to make these 3 sales calls. I'm going to prepare this pitch. And then what he would do is he just, at the end of every day, just looks back at what he did and not the result. And he said it made him feel so good about work. And then, of course, the end of the story, he had one of his highest sales months like this last month. And he wasn't even focused on the outcome, right? He's just focused on the quality and volume of the input.
And I
Um,
would actually argue that the reason that is because when he's focused on that input, he's in a perpetually positive state. Therefore, that creates momentum, that creates positive energy, which also means when he's on the phone calls, when he's interacting, when he's doing this, when he's doing that, it's all giving energy.
yeah.
And I think if you think on an energetic level, if you double click and go a level deeper and understand what that creates, in so many aspects of your life, it becomes very clear as to why creating mental frameworks like this is extremely advantageous.
You're talking about thinking on the energetic level, and I see a correlation with that to focusing on like the effort that someone's putting in, right? In the Sarah Blakely example. Actually, I'll tell you a funny thing was I ran 100-mile ultra marathon. That was my goal last year, and I did it in December. It took me
Congratulations.
25 hours. Thank you. It was a spiritual experience. I learned a lot about myself. It was the best memory of my life. And what does everyone ask? What place did you get?
Oh, they
So
say that?
that's the yeah, that is
Do you
every
remember what I
question.
asked you?
When you no.
I said, what was the first thing you did after you crossed that line?
Oh yeah.
And I think you said collapse or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dude, everyone says, what do you like what place did you get? And it's like if 20 other people ran, I would have got 20 spots worse potentially. But like, dude, like it was
Sure.
still like the best memory of
It's
my
not what
life,
it's about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Um, I know we gotta wrap up here in a minute. I want to hit you with a couple um, quick questions that just come from my mind
Go for it.
from this call. And the first one was right before we were chatting. You asked me, "Hey, do you believe in visualization?" And I want to know if you believe or if you practice visualization, what that looks like in your daily practice.
It's so interesting you ask. So I practice it by accident. I'm the type of person that falls into dream state while I'm in normal life all the time. I'll zone out and just dream. And I actually just realized now that that is my form of visualization. And then I'll write a note about it and make a piece of content about it. But I'm visualizing
Beautiful.
all the time. When I'm walking down the street, I'm walking with a certain energy and pretending I'm the person I'm trying to become, if that makes sense. When I'm working, I'm listening to content that is putting me in a mind frame of the person I want to become. So I'm constantly visualizing, but I don't think I do it in maybe a traditional sense where someone would think I sit there and focus on visualizing. I think I'm visualizing my world here and there all the time.
I think that's a dynamic practice of it. That sounds even better.
I didn't even realize I was doing it till you asked the question, but I'm always in dream state. I'm drifting off all the time.
That's good. You're learning about yourself. You also you mentioned about that earlier that like sometimes your partner will ask you questions and you'll um and your partner will ask you questions you'll answer and then you'll like be listening to the answer as you're saying it like just like it's kind of
Mm,
just like coming out. I think you
yeah.
said an external processor,
Yeah.
external,
Like
yeah.
I uh I do a lot of things without knowing why I do them, and maybe that's naturally human. But if you ask me why I do them, I can figure it out, right? So I'll make a lot of decisions in modern marketing that, like I said, my business partner's like, "Hey, like, what? How did you even like come up to that? Why did you make that decision? You just made it instantly. It's a big decision. You didn't even like think twice about it. What da da da." And then I'll actually be able to sit there and like work through myself. Okay, why did I? And like actually break it down and then explain it back, and then I learn about myself, my natural state.
Dude, I love to hear that, and I got to tell you that something that I've been doing is asking myself questions.
Mm.
I think getting on these podcasts and stuff, are great, but asking yourself questions is beautiful, and it doesn't always have to be in like to learn about yourself. Next time you have a problem, okay, I want to make double the money in half the time. Cool. Write that on a sheet of paper and answer it yourself. Don't go look out there for content ideas like you were saying. Like it's all in here. It's actually wild. Like I had a friend recently who he left this morning. He came to visit me for a week. He was dealing with some confidence issues, and he's like, "Sean, I just want to hang. We'll get some hikes and we'll talk, whatever." And he goes, I don't have any idea how to build self confidence. I was like, really? You don't have any
What'd you
idea?
tell him? I'm
What?
curious. What'd you tell him?
I told him, write down in your journal the way you build self confidence is, and then write for 25 minutes without stopping. And he was like,
Mm.
but I don't know. I'm like, then write I don't know for 25 fucking minutes. And, he
Mm.
literally was at this desk in this room for 25 minutes. And dude came out
Is he
with like
is
a
he
whole,
smart?
what?
Is he smart?
Yeah.
So I think the problem is when you're smart, you can't bullshit yourself. And I would imagine, well, I'm not going to assume, but what I find people with lack of confidence who are intelligent, um, and the reason I say intelligent, if you're not intelligent, you can live in delusion and you can just be ignorance is bliss happy. But if you're smart, you can't live in delusion. And therefore, in order to be confident, you have to achieve and you have to accomplish things that you set your mind to show yourself you have reason to be confident. I don't think you can convince yourself to be confident. I think you have to prove to yourself you deserve confidence and you've earned confidence and you have something to stand on. Um, and I made a story about it last week about earned confidence.
I love that. Yeah, man.
Hmm.
That is beautiful to think about because like maybe it could be scary for some people to think about. I don't know. That you do need to
Hmm.
like earn your confidence, but where I was kind of going was that I think we have a lot of answers inside of us. That intuition is the same reason you're able to make big decisions about your company like this, you know?
Mm.
And I think if we ask us questions, right? Like he said, I don't even know how to build confidence. And I was like, dude, just write about it. I guarantee you know. And he came back with 20 ideas and he listed
I,
them to me and
I
they all,
I want him to write why he's not confident.
yeah,
I think that is revealing because then it's like, okay, how do you flip those? Like, for instance, like for me, it's like, yo, put your mind to benching 2 plates or some shit and like make a work back schedule of the average timeline it takes to do that. Hit the gym every single day. And once you bench 2 plates, you're going to be very confident in, in the fact if you put your mind to something, you can do it. Right. Or start a company and make a goal of just getting to $5,000 a month, right? And then make a work back plan and do it. Now you're like walking around with swag, like, yo, I fucking said I'd make 5 G's a month and I am. Like that's confident. Like you create confidence, in my opinion, or you're delusional.
yeah. No, I think you're right. Um, And it is crazy how like little things kind of build on top of each other, like
Yeah,
by just
100%.
doing the one thing. Well, man, dude, we could rattle this one off for a while. I know I promised at the top of the hour we'll pause it. Um, I am. You're gonna have to text me when you're making plans for Banff. I know you're going hiking soon. But
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for the last 20, 30 years of work you've put in on yourself, whether you're knowing or
Mm.
not knowing, to be able to come here and have this discussion. That means a lot for me. And people ask, who do you have on the podcast? And I say, people that give a shit about life.
Mm.
People that
That's a
just give a
fact.
fuck about life, you know? And that's what attracts me to you and other guests on here is just, like anyone that living intentionally and gives a shit and shows it to me is worth, trying to give value to them, learn from them, keep in your tight circle. So I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Likewise, brother. And I think we're meant to cross paths, and I'm really blessed that we're in each other's lives now and are going to be able to ascend. Like I always say, like when you watch a movie and then they like do a scene where they're like daydreaming back to when they were a child and they have like the child versions of them acting. Like it's
Yeah.
like a guy and his buddy, and then they'll like go back and they're like eating ice cream or some shit, and now they're like back to here. I think we're those child actors right now, and in 20 years we'll have and it's like we're literally living in that moment, and like the classic, like I wish you knew you're in the good old days when you're in them. I feel like we're in them right now, and this is like the story making time that we're gonna reminisce on, and so I'm
All right.
excited
Well, then,
to have you part of those stories.
thank you. Then let's make sure we live in it. All
My
right,
man.
man. I appreciate you. Have a good one.
Cheers, brother. Thanks.